Hey everyone, guess is back. It's Kamish back here with another team preview. This time it's Matt and Bill's Mafia, former champion, 2021 champion to be in fact. Um, I mean, that's 25% of the opportunities there to win the championship. So I think anytime any of us win a championship, it has to be highly regarded because there's 16 of us trying to win this thing. And, it's definitely difficult. The only thing that sucked about Matt leaving is because he left the waffle, obviously. I put that in the preview. Left a hole for sure, but happy to have him in LOD. Very active owner and really enjoy having him here. And he's had success here, so he definitely knows what he's doing. Just going to share my screen here. And we'll get into your presentation here. All right, so Bill's Mafia. Here we go. So offense, well, gave you fifth. So I think to be in the top 5 in the league is pretty awesome. And right now I currently have you sitting at fifth. I think it's going to be probably 5 teams that really are going to compete for the title. So maybe more. I think anybody could win it, but right now you're sitting at fifth. And when we start with your quarterback, I gave you a ranking of 6th. I might be like, wow, 6th? That's kind of seems kind of low. Well, let's look at it in terms of yesterday's preview. We did No More, and No More came in with a ranking of 5th. So he was 1 spot ahead of you. And right now, I think Joe Burrow's better than Josh Allen, to be honest. I think he's in a better scenario. I think he's got better weapons. I think he's just going to be better. And so that's why I gave you a tier lower with Josh Allen. And you know what? Compared to Russell Wilson with No More, and you got Desmond Ridder and Hendon Hooker. Although I'd like the Hendon Hooker pick. I mean, he's older. Got to wonder how, if he will be the succession plan. And Detroit very well could be, right? So I thought it was a great pick at the time. Getting Desmond Ridder, I think it's good that you got a starting quarterback. There's no doubt about it. He's starting for Atlanta this year. The only issue I see there is I do see them handing the ball off a lot. Best thing for you might be Ridder throwing, screens and maybe slants and stuff, and guys making things happen after the catch because there's obviously playmakers there now, right? Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan, Tyler Algier. They've improved the wide receiver core overall. So there's no doubt about it. Ridder you would think would be better than his first year. His first year, he definitely looked fairly pedestrian at the position. But again, that's probably the play calls as well, and them not trusting him to, maybe make a more high impact play. But quarterbacks, definitely one of the strongest in the league to be in 6th place. Your top half and definitely a threat in there. Josh Allen can win you games on his own. I've had him in leagues prior, and he definitely won games for me. I think actually even won me a championship in the LOC, the former LOC. Running backs, I have you at 8th. So again, top half. And again, when I look at it, it's because you have guys, at least 4 guys on the roster who look like they are going to get some sort of point production. I don't think it's necessarily going to be RB1 production because your guys look like they might be in a bit of a share. So there's challenges there. So we'll go through it. Like Brian Robinson, again, I posted on somebody else's preview that Antonio Gibson, it sounds like Ron Rivera or Eric Bieniemy wants to get him more involved in the running game, which would take away volume from Brian Robinson. And if I could give anyone the best advice, if anyone else is watching this preview other than Matt, you want to focus on guys who are going to get volume. If nobody's getting volume, then it's a boom or bust. And most of the time it's a bust. So, just think about how involved is the player I'm trying to get going to be, right? Alexander Madison, again, it sounds like Dalvin Cook's gone. They just took him off part of their programming or some sort of advertising, I read. And, and they put Madison there. So clearly they think Madison's going to seize the job. Whether or not it's a true RB1 remains to be seen. There is Ty Chandler there still. People forgot about him. So we'll have to see. Devin Singletary, he's in a busy backfield, let's face it. I think his points, he'll get some, there'll probably likely be some point production. How much, though, is, big question mark. Jalen Warren, this guy looked good last year, right? Najee Harris looked like he took a step back, and Jalen Warren came in there and kind of made Najee look bad on a few plays. I think Najee maybe might not have been healthy. But with Najee there, Jalen, you got to think at least at first, unless the guy can blow the doors off, isn't going to be in a true RB1 role. He's definitely going to be in a committee, and that committee likely will be the lower half. And then you have three guys that honestly, I think potential, but at this point, they're flyers, right? Deneric Prince, Isaiah Bowser, Keaton Mitchell. Heard good things in the research that I've done. But again, at the same time, it really is potentially they're flyers, right? At this point, we'll have to see what they do, in training camp and obviously in OTAs and etc. coming up here. Wide receivers, gave you fourth. So top four, final four in wide receivers. I like the group. Drake London in year two. You guys know I was high on this guy last year. I think he's going to get better. I think Drake London is a true OWR1. I saw him live when USC played Notre Dame, and London stole the show on USC side. So I think he's going to be great. Brandon Cooks, he's going to a situation there in Dallas where he might actually get a little bit more fantasy point production just due to the offense being a little obviously better than Houston and potential for touchdowns. Jackson Smith and Jibba probably won't make the impact this year, but long-term likely will pay off for you. So if you're a long-term investor on Smith and Jibba, likely it'll pay off. Alan Lazard, of course, following his buddy. I think he's going to get some volume. KJ Osborne, everybody's writing this guy off because Addison went there, but I don't think you can write the guy off just yet. He would still be, the fourth option in that offense, receiving wise. Then Gabe Davis, this guy was a huge disappointment last year. You have to admit. I think we did that trade. Remember Debo for Gabe Davis, and I think I won that trade. I just flipped Debo for a bunch of picks, and then I turned those picks into Tyreek Hill and potentially Caleb Williams next year because I have cash in my Belichick's first. So I think that trade paid off for me. You haven't seen the payoff yet for Gabe Davis, and this is really the make it or break it year, if you ask me. Greg Dortch, Rashid Shaheed, and Tyler Boyd, I think, are great depth pieces. Tyler Boyd does get involved. Rashid Shaheed still looks like he's going to be at least the third option in New Orleans. And Greg Dortch, who knows, right? Who knows where DeAndre Hopkins is? But Dortch, like the Dortch, showed some big games last year, big play potential for your fantasy team. Jaden Reed, here's a guy that might come in and be in a volume situation. Same with Nakua there. Thing about Jaden Reed, I don't know if you heard the story, but apparently they're being investigated. His agent might have bribed some teams to try to draft him higher. Not a good look. I'm sure none of that matters on the field, but still not a good look. But the wide receiver group is solid. Again, fourth might be even a bit too high, but I'm really high on Drake London. And he also drafted what every expert said was the best wide receiver in the draft this past year. And you have to consider that a win. Tight ends, I gave you 8. So you're just in the middle of the road. Might even have rated you a bit too high for this year, to be honest. I gave you the 8th ranking for the potential, right? So Dalton Kincaid coming in. You got to wonder if they're pleased with Dawson Knox. Why do you draft a guy that high? Or maybe they're more unimpressed about their 4th wide receiver option. Can't see him playing the slot, but maybe he plays the slot. Apparently looked rusty in rookie minicamp, so it'll be interesting to see going into OTAs and mandatory minicamp how he performs. Mandatory minicamp, of course, with the veterans or rookies get their first taste of that. Noah Fant, he was part of that Russell Wilson deal. Again, didn't look good last year in Seattle, and I don't expect them to look much better unless something changes. I do like Michael Mayer for the Raiders, right? I thought you did a great job on that pick. But again, rookie tight ends don't produce typically right away. And with Austin Hooper in the mix, I don't think Michael Mayer is going to produce big numbers right away. Maybe next year. But, maybe we're giving you a higher ranking next year because these guys are entering year two. But for this year, it's definitely eighth place. Defense, I also have you top half. I have you in seventh. So definitely see you as a contender this year. Definitely see you as a playoff team. Do I see you winning the title? Maybe, but it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be tough for anyone to win the title when we feature the best team. But seventh power ranking, PLLB, you got three good guys there, right? Max Crosby's great. Again, part of the Raiders. Sam Hubbard might even have more production. I think Trey Hendrickson's coming off an injury, isn't he? For Cincinnati. So, of course, Hubbard's going to be the featured guy there. Greg Rousseau with Buffalo, should continue the part of that development. And then you also drafted or picked up their call for Seattle, and they drafted him pretty high. So it'll be interesting to see. They don't really have any good pass rushers there, right? And Wosu was their best pass rusher last year. So Derek Hall could also have a volume opportunity. And I will give you credit, Matt. I always notice that you do, or you're smart when you pick up guys. I always notice you are going after guys that have potential volume opportunities. Your middle linebackers are pretty decent as well. Luvu came out of, well, I don't know if he came out of nowhere, but he was a great point producer last year. Zaire Franklin's going to have a role now, right? Okerike's gone in Indianapolis. Jerome Baker usually seems to be somewhat decent production. Monty Rice also is going to have a role now in Tennessee. Diablo and Bernard, we'll have to see if Bernard has the major role in Buffalo. And if he did, that would be a huge waiver wire pickup for you. But they are middle linebackers that might not be the big names, but I know that they definitely have the potential to produce points. And then you have a schwack of DBs here. You have 9 of them on the roster. Seems like a lot. You can draft 6 max. So you can definitely draft 66.67% of your DBs on any given week. When I look at the group, again, I see a lot of corners. Those are boom or bust, right? Stingley, Gordon, Elam, these guys are going to be boom or bust. Looking at the rookies, you got a lot of rookies, right? How many rookies do you have? 4 in the DB position. I think Jair Brown could win the role over Gibson in San Francisco. Sidney Brown, I think, actually might even have the role in now over Reed Blankenship. I know in Curly's preview, I liked his pickup of Blankenship, but I think he's definitely going to be in a battle with Sidney Brown. That'll be worth watching again in OTAs, mini camps, and eventually when training camps come. The DB group, I think, is, again, middle of the road. That's why I gave you 7th place. I definitely feel you do have a middle of the road defense compared to some of the other defenses out there. So, Matt, looking at your outlook here, and I'll just stop sharing. I think for you, it's going to be, a good year. I think you're in a tough division, though, with Deuce. Cashing, I think, is a good team, but he still has a ways to go. And I think Curly also still has a ways to go. And I'm giving you the decisive advantage over those two teams as the second best team in the division. I think you're going to be hard pressed to win the division. Deuce still has not lost a game in regular season history in the LOD, and clearly he's trying to repeat that. For you and your draft pick outlook, I see you with no first and no fourth next year, only a second, third, and a fifth. And all your regular picks for the next 2 years after that. I would say you make a lot of moves. I wouldn't be surprised if you acquire draft picks or whatever you decide to do this year. Also, just want to say again, it's an absolute pleasure to have you in this league. I consider you to be right up at the upper echelon here of owners in this format. Ever since you've come in, I've seen you have success. For the most part, you've had some, bad season here and there, no doubt. But part of that was usually part of a rebuilding effort. So you know what it takes to build a winning fantasy team. And I truly appreciate you having in the league. Great communicator. And I wish you nothing but success this year.